Hello. The Divine Code reading for September 20th, pages 209 and 210. We're in Chapter 7, the obligation to eliminate idol worship and the prohibition of benefiting from it. Continuing in topic number 13. Which is discussing if forbidden images, items, and such were mixed together indistinguishably with permitted items, and it's a 50-50. They're both equal amounts. Because if it's a majority of idolatrous items, then the mixture is prohibited. If it's a majority of permitted items, the mixture is permitted. But if it's 50-50, it can. What do you do? What do you do with it? So continuing with topic number 13, the destruction is necessary of the necessary number of items. So if it's 50-50, the idea is to destroy half of the items within the mixture. You know, we have a mixture of garden frog figurines mixed with a equal amount of idolatrous frog figurines, and you can't tell the difference. So what do we do with this mixture? So if we eliminate half of the mixture, that would be considered, even though what's left over, we don't know how many of those are frog or idolatrous versus permitted items, but we've eliminated, we've nullified the effect of the mixture by getting rid of the half of the mixture. The destruction of the necessary number of items may be done deliberately, and certainly if it is sufficient in their destruction is accidental. For example, by falling into the sea, being burnt, etc. So 50% of the items are destroyed for whatever reason. That makes the what's left over to be permitted for benefit. Even if the necessary number of items are A, lost from the mixture. Even if the lost items were later found. If the same number of items from the mixture had already been consumed or sold. But if all the items from the mixture were once again intact in the possession of the original owner, the situation reverts to the original case. So if somehow they get lost, the person has 100 items of this mixture, 50-50 mixture. 50 of the items are lost. Honestly lost. And he uses the other half. He can use up the other half because it's been destroyed. I mean, it's lost. 50% of them got lost. It doesn't state clearly here whether or not he's allowed to use the new lost 50%, or if that now is considered 50-50, or if it's considered 100% idolatrous items, that the entire thing would have to be destroyed. It's not clear in that regard. But the first 50% that he used is permitted. Or B, given away to another Gentile. This should not be done from the onset because it resembles deliberately making a mixture with idolatrous items as discussed in topic 12 above. So that's where a person deliberately adds non-idolatrous figurines to the mixture to create a majority of permitted items. You're not supposed to do that, but once it's done, the mixture can be used. Well, similarly here, we're not supposed to take 50. If the person takes of the 100 items, he takes 50 of the items, gives it to someone else. Is that considered sufficiently nullifying? Technically, it would be, and it would be the items that would now be permitted. It might even be the case where the recipient of the other 50, because there's still doubt there, that recipient can also use his 50%. So instead of saying, okay, I've got this bag of 100 items, and I can't do anything with it, but it's in this kind of an in-between zone. If I give 50% of it to someone else, then we can both use our 50%. Because the other person's 50% nullifies each other, and somehow that works. It's not permitted to do that in the beginning, but once, if it is done, if someone does it, then the items would be permitted for benefit. A pious non-Jew would shy away from doing that, but if it is done, then it's okay after the fact. And here also, a person is causing a doubt to arise in order to make the mixture permitted because of the doubt. But after the fact, each item is permitted because of the doubt. Then the rest are permitted because of the doubt. If one adds, as explained above in topic 11, footnote there. If one adds permitted items, statues, images, goblets, etc., to the mixture in order that the number of permitted items will be greater than the forbidden ones, and thus the forbidden ones will be nullified, the mixture is permitted, as was explained in topic 12. But if one merely sets aside some of the mixture and designates it as prohibited for its benefit, this accomplishes nothing at all, since the forbidden objects will remain in the possession of this in the same ratio, and there's no change in the doubtful situation. So the person takes, if he has his 100 items, it was 50-50, and he takes 10 items and he adds it to the mixture. Now it's 60-50, and the permitted items outweigh the prohibited items, and it nullifies the entire mixture, and it can be used. If the person takes the 50-50 mixture, he takes 10 items out of the bag, he puts it in a different bag. That would not nullify it, because just because it's in a different bag, it still is it's in his possession. I do not know what would happen if he took 10 items out of the bag and gave it to another non-Jew. Would that take it out of his dominion and now change the mixture in the bag to permitted items? That's would have to be looked further into. See footnote from yesterday, 2:16, that deliberately mixing a forbidden item with permitted items in order to nullify it is questionable. But in this case, we may be more lenient, since the mixture originally happened accidentally, and we are only speaking about adding permissible items to make them the majority. In the opinion of Rambam in the Laws of Forbidden Foods, 1527, and Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 99.6, is that adding to a mixture after the fact is permitted in some cases. So it may be that it's permitted to do this, that they add the 10 extra items to the bag to make it 60-50. It might be okay. Topic number 14. It is forbidden to sit in the shade of an asher's tree or under it, whether it was worship or whether there is an idol under it, since it appears as though the person is benefiting from idolatry and desires that it should be preserved. So it gives, if a person is in a situation where they're, in this case, an asher's tree, or maybe an awning outside of an idolatrous temple, he's resting there. He's resting on the steps outside of the temple. It creates at least, it can create the favorable feeling for himself and for other people seeing him. It can create the favorable feeling towards the idol. And we're not allowed to preserve idolatry, and therefore it's not something the person should do to create a favorable opinion towards the idol. It is forbidden to walk under the asher's tree if there is an equidistant or shorter route that one could follow instead. But if there isn't such a route one could follow, he may pass under it. And it is better to do so running, since he has no intention of benefiting from the shade or the pleasant smell. See Shulchan Aruch Yeridea 142, 9 and 15, and Shach there. Rabbi Akiva Eger, in the name of the author of Kiryat Sefer, explains that the shade is not considered to be a real benefit, and it is comparable to sound, sight, or smell, which provide no tangible benefits. Tractate Pesakim 26a. See the explanation of Tosafot and Tractate Avodah Zarah 48b. It is obvious then that when there is no intention to derive benefit, there is no prohibition for a Gentile to pass by. So it's possible to, the person that's resting underneath the awning of an idolatrous temple or under the asher's tree, the person is resting there. It appears that he's intending to benefit. The person is just simply walking, and it happens to be that he goes underneath the shade of an asher's tree. But it's the quickest distance to get across to where he's going. Then it's of a pragmatic nature. It's not that he's going that route because there's an asher's tree there, and he's enjoying the benefit of the shade. He's just getting from point A to point B. Perhaps he should go an alternate route, even if it's a little bit longer, but it's not necessary to do so. If you're in a park-like atmosphere and there's a sidewalk that everyone walks along the sidewalk, it happens going into the asher's tree, that's not an issue. But it's whether or not it seems that the person is on purpose going under the asher's tree. That would be the concern. The same ruling applies for someone who is walking near a house or temple of idol worship. If he can hear the sound of the worshippers' music or singing, it is forbidden to pass by the building while the pleasant-sounding service is in progress, or in order to avoid benefiting from it. But if there isn't a different route that one can follow just as easily, and one does not intend to benefit, that is pleasure, from the music or singing, it is permitted to use the route that goes by that place. So there's pleasure that comes from music. There could be pleasure that comes from looking at architecture. There can be pleasure that comes from incense. These are pleasures that can be derived that are coming from the idolatry. And if the person is going in that way, that there may be another way to do it, but if the person is going in that way, they should avoid going past the idolatry, the pleasure of the idolatry. And it may be best if just from a character development standpoint, that the person avoids these things, even if it means going a little bit further away. But it's not necessary from a halakhic standpoint. It's more from a character development standpoint. The person should try to avoid it, even if it involves walking a little bit longer distance. In the Path of the Just, there's a description of a man who goes to a store where there's a female clerk. There's a store next to it where there's a man clerk. He goes to the female clerk store there because there's a pleasure derived from interacting just for that moment with a female instead of with the male. And therefore, it's recommended that he goes to the other store where there's a male, where he would not derive the same pleasure, the inappropriate pleasure of just simple interaction. That's recommended there from the character development standpoint. Even if it's a little bit extra distance, that can be beneficial for his character. But from a halakhic standpoint, the halakhic standpoint is if it's the equal distance, or if it's more than equal distance, then it can go the route that's shorter. But if it's equal distance, or if it's longer, then it seems that he's definitely going towards the idolatrous pleasure. Even if it's just walking past, it's a peripheral pleasure, but it's something that a person should avoid because it's not something good for himself. And it's also, it creates the impression to other people that he's walking by because he wants to hear the music. If there isn't a different route one can follow just as easily, but one does not intend to derive benefit, pleasure from the music or singing, it is permitted to use the route that goes by the place. So he doesn't care about the music. If he cares about the music, it's best to find a different route. If he doesn't care about the music, it's just noise to him. It's a type of music he doesn't like. Then he can walk by it, and as long as it's just on the route, he's not really paying attention to the music. He's not paying attention to this or that. That's the shade of the Asher tree. He's not paying attention to it. He's just walking. He's going from point A to point B, and it happens to be the best route for him to go, so he goes it. In that case, it's okay, as long as the person is not deriving pleasure from this or that reason. Topic number 15. Sticks and twigs taken from an Asher's tree may not be benefited from, if they are nevertheless used to start a fire in the furnace of an oven. It is permitted to derive from their heat or to cook over their coals. That's discussed in Taz Uridea 142:1. Topic number 16. It is forbidden to derive benefit from a knife that was used in serving an idol. If one slaughtered an animal with a knife that was used for serving an idol, one may eat the animal. Similarly, if one transgressed and used other vessels of idol worship that are forbidden for benefit, for example, if one placed food in such a vessel or cooked food in it, the food is permitted. So it's prohibited to do these things, but it's not, from the onset, it's prohibited to do these things. After the fact, what is derived from it? The cooked meal that came from the branches of an ostrich tree, or the food that was placed within a vessel that was used for idolatry. After the fact, these things are permitted for benefit. The items, not the original item, is still not permitted for benefit, but what's used, 1 degree away would be acceptable for benefit. The prohibition for a Jew to benefit from any idolatry, that is baked bread, coals over coals from an ostrich tree. So for a Jew, these things would not be permitted for benefit after the fact. It's from the derivation from Tractate Avodah Zarah 54b in connection with the verse, "Lest you become cursed like it." Anything that comes from idolatry is considered to be forbidden, like the idolatry itself. So in the case of a Jew, these items would still be forbidden. And I would suggest that a non-Jew, even though it's permitted, the food that's baked with the branches of an ostrich tree, even though the food itself is permitted, it may be more pious to take the stricter approach, but it's not necessary. It's not halachically necessary. It would just be an extra measure of piety that a non-Jew might be allowed to take on a voluntary basis. Thank you.